She ran from every wolf who wanted to claim her, scarred, hunted, and alone. But when the alpha prince tracks her scent to an abandoned cabin, what begins as a chase becomes something far more dangerous, love that defies the law of the pack and destiny itself. Hey everyone, before we dive into today's video, please do subscribe to the channel. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your country or city in the comments below. It truly amazes me how far our community reaches around the world. All right, now let's begin. The wind howled through the black pine forest, carrying the scent of rain and fear. Lyra pressed her back against the splintered cabin wall, her trembling hands clutching the old shotgun she'd found under the floorboards. The storm outside masked every sound except one, the heavy footsteps crunching closer through the snow. She hadn't seen another soul in weeks. She thought she'd escaped. She thought the mating ceremony had ended without her. But now, someone had found her. Thunder rolled as the first knock came, 3 slow, deliberate hits that made her heart stop. Thump, thump, thump. Her breath caught. No one should know she was here. No one except the moon and the man she was born to run from. Go away, she whispered, though her voice was barely a sound. The door creaked. A deep, steady voice cut through the storm. Open the door, Omega. Her knees nearly buckled. That voice wasn't anyone's. It was him, the alpha prince of the Silverclaw pack, the one she defied by disappearing before the claiming, the one whose name made the strongest wolves kneel. Ronan. Lyra froze, every muscle screaming between fear and something else she couldn't name. His scent slipped through the cracks of the wooden door, wild pine, smoke, and dominance. It clawed at her instincts, begging her to submit, to open the door, to let the alpha in. But she couldn't. Not again. She pressed her forehead against the wood, eyes squeezing shut, as memories of the ceremony burned through her mind. The rows of omegas, the scent of roses and blood, the moment she'd realized she was just another prize for powerful men to claim. She'd run that night, barefoot through snow, while the rest of the pack howled under the full moon. She'd sworn never to belong to anyone again. Lyra, the alpha's voice rumbled lower, as though he already knew she was behind the door. If you don't open this, I'll break it down. Her pulse raced. She wanted to scream that she wasn't his to command, that she wasn't an omega to be owned. But her throat refused. A flash of lightning lit the room, and for one fragile second she saw her reflection in the cracked mirror across the cabin. Mud-streaked, hollow-eyed, desperate. This isn't what freedom was supposed to look like. Then the door exploded inward. Wood splintered, cold wind slicing through the cabin as the alpha prince stepped inside. He filled the doorway like a storm, tall, broad-shouldered, silver eyes gleaming in the dark. His clothes were soaked through, his jaw shadowed with stubble, but his expression was unreadable. Lyra lifted the shotgun, hands shaking. "Stay back," she warned, but her voice broke on the last word. Ronan's gaze dropped to the weapon, then back to her eyes. He didn't flinch. "If you were going to shoot me, little wolf, you'd have done it already." The way he said "little wolf" made something deep inside her twist. He stepped closer, slow, careful, as if approaching a wounded creature that might bolt. "You've been running for too long, and now every hunter in the north is looking for you." "I don't care," she whispered. "I won't be claimed." A muscle ticked in his jaw. "You think that's what I came for?" He took another step, the air between them tightening. "You think I'd cross half a kingdom in a snowstorm just to drag you back?" Her grip faltered. The gun slipped, clattering to the floor. The silence that followed felt heavier than the storm. Ronan exhaled, his breath visible in the icy air. "You were supposed to be dead," he said, low, almost to himself. "They said you vanished after the ceremony. I searched for months." His words were steady, but his eyes, they burned with something raw. Anger, maybe. Pain. Lyra swallowed, still trembling. "Why?" she asked. "Why would an alpha prince care about a runaway omega?" Ronan's gaze softened, but only slightly. "Because the council lied," he said, "about who you are, about what you carry." "What I carry?" He hesitated, then took a single step closer. "Your bloodline. It's not omega blood, Lyra." The world tilted. For a moment she forgot the storm, the fear, even the cold. She could only hear her heartbeat, loud in her ears. "You're lying," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, you're the last descendant of the Moonfire line, the bloodline that could destroy or save every pack in the realm." Lyra's lips parted, her breath catching in disbelief. "You're insane." "Maybe, but that's why I'm here, to protect you, before they find out you're still alive." The cabin fell silent, except for the wind whistling through the cracks. Lyra stared at him, chest heaving. Protect her? This man, the Alpha Prince who'd stood on the claiming platform while she fled, was now claiming to save her? "You expect me to believe you're my protector? You're the reason I ran." Ronan didn't move, didn't even blink. "You ran because they wanted to mark you that night. But I didn't." His voice was calm, but beneath it something darker stirred. "I stopped the ceremony when I realized what they were doing. The council wanted your blood, not your bond." Lyra shook her head, tears burning her eyes. "You're lying. All of you do." Ronan's hand flexed at his side. "Then why didn't I mark anyone else, Lyra? Why do you think I never took another mate?" The words hung between them like thunder. The fire in the old hearth hissed as wind blew ash across the floor. Lyra's voice cracked. "You should have stayed away." Ronan's silver eyes softened, then hardened again. "I tried, but your scent called me here." Outside, a wolf howled in the distance, low, long, and close. Ronan's gaze snapped to the window. "They found you, and this time they won't stop until you're dead." The next howl split through the forest, closer this time, sharp and hungry. Lyra froze, her instincts screaming danger. Ronan moved fast, crossing the small cabin and slamming the heavy bolt across the shattered door. "They tracked your scent," he said, voice hard. "How long have you been here?" 2 months, she whispered, stepping back. "I thought no one would find me." Ronan's eyes flicked to the frost-covered window. Outside, shadows moved between the trees, fast, coordinated, and not human. The hunters weren't wolves. They were something worse. Trained rogues wearing wolfskins, bound by blood contracts to the council. Ronan turned to her, jaw tight. "Pack your things, now." "I have nothing," she said, shaking her head. "I came here with nothing." For a second, the prince just stared at her, like her words hurt him in some way he couldn't show. Then he stepped forward, gripping her wrist. His skin was warm against hers. "Then you run with me." Lyra hesitated, torn between terror and disbelief. "You expect me to trust you after everything you've done?" Ronan leaned closer, his scent flooding her senses. "You don't have to trust me. Just don't die tonight." Outside, the second howl answered the first, closer, louder, and this time it was joined by many. They burst out into the storm, the cold biting through Lyra's thin clothes. Snowflakes whipped against her face as she ran, her hand still caught in Ronan's iron grip. The forest blurred past, black trunks, silver moonlight, the crunch of boots and breath. Behind them, the rogues gave chase, their growls echoing through the trees. Ronan moved like the storm itself, fast and silent, pulling her along paths only an alpha could sense. His movements were precise, predatory, every decision meant to keep her alive. Lyra's lungs burned, but she refused to slow. She'd spent too many years running from fear. She wouldn't die like prey. They reached the frozen creek, the moonlight turning the ice to glass. Ronan stopped, scanning the tree line. "They'll cross from the east," he muttered. "We need to lose the scent." "How?" He glanced down at her, then at the dark water beneath the ice. Lyra's eyes widened. "No, absolutely not. It's the only way." Before she could argue, Ronan cracked the ice with his boot and pulled her under. The cold hit like knives, her lungs screaming, her heart pounding as the freezing current dragged them downstream. She tried to fight it, but his grip never loosened. When they finally surfaced far from the cabin, Lyra gasped for air, shivering uncontrollably. Ronan's voice came low, steady, reassuring. "They won't smell us now." But behind his calm tone, she saw something in his eyes. Fear. Not for himself, for her. By dawn, they reached an old watchtower on the edge of the cliffs. The structure leaned against the wind, half swallowed by snow and silence. Inside, Lyra huddled by the cracked hearth while Ronan worked to light a fire. Her lips were blue, her teeth chattering. He removed his cloak and wrapped it around her shoulders without a word. "Why are they after me?" she finally whispered. "You said something about my bloodline, about Moonfire." Ronan's expression darkened. The flames flickered, lighting the scar along his neck. Centuries ago, the Moonfire wolves carried pure silver blood. It let them shift even under daylight and heal from wounds that killed others. Lyra frowned. "That sounds like a story." He met her eyes. "It was, until you were born." The air froze between them. Ronan continued quietly. "The council destroyed your family to keep that power from rising again. They thought they killed everyone." Lyra's stomach twisted. "And you, how do you know all this?" Ronan looked away. "Because my father helped hunt them." Her breath caught. The words hit harder than any blow. "Your father killed my family?" He didn't deny it. "Yes, and it's why he wants you dead too." The fire cracked loudly, echoing in the silence. Lyra's hands tightened around the cloak, her chest trembling. "So I really shouldn't exist?" Ronan looked up, his voice rough. "No, little wolf, you're the reason everything still does." Lyra turned towards the small window, watching dawn paint the snow in shades of old and blood. The forest seemed peaceful again, but it was the kind of peace that came after violence. "If they find out I'm alive, they'll kill me," she whispered. "And if they find out you're with me, they'll kill us both." Her head snapped toward him. "Then why stay?" He leaned against the wall, exhaustion shadowing his face. "Because fate is funny. It keeps dragging me back to you." The words made her heart stumble. She hated the way they sounded, the way they felt true even when she didn't want them to be. "You think fate forgives killers?" she asked bitterly. "No," he said softly, "but maybe it gives them a chance to make it right." The fire crackled, throwing light across his face. The alpha prince who'd once stood above thousands, now hiding beside the girl his kingdom wanted dead. Outside, the first snow began to fall again, heavy and quiet. Lyra looked down at her hands, tracing faint silver lines along her wrist. scars she'd never noticed glowing faintly beneath her skin. "Ronan," she whispered, "what's happening to me?" His eyes followed the shimmer, widening slightly. "That," he said, almost in awe, "is your blood remembering what it is." The glow faded as quickly as it came, leaving Lyra shaken. "I don't understand," she breathed. "You will. But first, you need to learn control. That power, it's waking up, and when it does, the moon will know you live." She wanted to laugh, to call him insane, but deep down, something inside her was changing. Her heartbeat felt different, her senses sharper. She could hear the distant creak of the trees, the pulse in Ronan's throat, the flutter of snow landing outside. It was terrifying, beautiful, wrong. Ronan crouched beside her, voice steady. "We'll head north before sunset. There's someone who can help you." "Someone?" she asked. "Who?" His gaze drifted to the flames. "An exile. The last surviving Moonfire warrior." Lyra blinked. "I thought you said they were all dead." Ronan's lips curved faintly. "So did they." A sound broke the moment, the crunch of footsteps outside. Ronan's hand went to his blade. Lyra's pulse spiked. "The rogues?" He shook his head slowly. "This scent isn't them." Then came a knock. 3 slow, deliberate hits, just like the night before. Ronan stood, tension coiling through his body. "Stay behind me," he ordered. The door creaked open, and in the pale morning light stood a woman with silver hair and eyes that glowed like the moon. "Hello, child," she said softly. "You finally awakened." The woman's presence filled the cabin like a whisper from another world. Her hair shimmered with silver under the pale light, long and wild as if spun from the moon itself. Lyra stumbled back, her voice barely a breath. "Who are you?" The woman's eyes softened. "My name is Alara." She glanced at Ronan, her expression sharp enough to wound. "And you, Prince, should not have brought her here." Ronan stepped forward, his hand hovering near his blade. "You're supposed to be dead." A faint smile touched Alara's lips. "That makes 2 of us." Lyra's gaze darted between them, confusion flooding her chest. "You know each other?" Ronan's jaw tightened. "She was one of my father's generals, until she betrayed the throne." Alara turned her cold eyes to him. "No, boy, I didn't betray your throne. I defied your father's slaughter." The air in the cabin felt heavier now, thick with truths Lyra didn't understand. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Alara's voice softened again, almost maternal. "You carry the blood of the Moonfire. That power is waking, and once it does, every alpha will feel it. You have 2 choices: learn to control it, or die when it consumes you." The words landed like thunder. Ronan stepped forward, protective now. "You're not taking her anywhere." Alara's gaze turned sharp. "You think you can protect her from herself?" Then she looked back at Lyra, and for a moment her voice cracked. "Your mother once asked me the same thing." The room froze. Lyra's breath hitched. "My mother?" Alara nodded slowly. "She died to keep you hidden, child. And now you've lit the sky again." Lyra's world tilted. She stumbled backward, clutching the cloak tighter around herself. "You knew my mother?" Alara's eyes glistened like liquid silver. "I trained beside her. She was the fiercest Moonfire of her generation, brave, kind, and reckless enough to fall in love with a wolf she should have feared." Ronan looked away, guilt flickering across his face. "A wolf she should have feared. You mean my father?" Alara nodded. "He was a soldier under the Alpha King's command. When your mother refused the council's demands to surrender her blood, he helped her escape. They ran, they hid. And when you were born, they swore to raise you far from the packs. The story twisted like a blade in Lyra's heart. Then why didn't they tell me? Because they knew what you'd become and what it would cost. Lyra's eyes burned. What happened to them? Alara hesitated. Your father died protecting you. Your mother was captured and executed before the pack's altar. The words stole the air from Lyra's lungs. The firelight flickered, and suddenly she couldn't breathe. No, no, that's not true. Alara's face broke for a moment, her own voice trembling. I wish it weren't. Silence pressed in, thick and merciless. Finally, Ronan's voice cut through, low and controlled. Why tell her this now? Alara met his gaze, because the same council that killed her parents will come for her next, and this time they'll use your name to find her. Ronan's expression darkened, his fists clenching at his sides. They already tried. I won't let them near her. Alara tilted her head slightly. You're your father's son, whether you like it or not. They'll use that. Lyra stood in the corner, trembling, her mind spinning between rage and grief. You're both speaking as if I'm a weapon. I'm not some prophecy. I'm just me. Alara looked at her sadly. That's what your mother said. Something inside Lyra cracked. She turned away, wiping her tears roughly. Then maybe she was right. But as she spoke, her wrist began to burn. A faint silver glow crawled up her arm, pulsing with every heartbeat. Alara's eyes widened. Lyra, stop! I'm not doing anything! The air vibrated, the fire roaring higher without fuel. Frost bloomed on the windows, and the cabin groaned under invisible pressure. Ronan lunged forward, grabbing her shoulders. Lyra, breathe. Focus on me. Her eyes flashed with light, silver and wild. For a heartbeat, the entire room shimmered, and then everything went silent. The fire died. Lyra collapsed into his arms, unconscious. Alara exhaled shakily. It started. Her awakening. Ronan looked down at Lyra's pale face, his voice almost a growl. Then teach her to control it. Alara's gaze hardened. If she survives it, I will. When Lyra woke, the world felt wrong. The room smelled sharper, like smoke and cold air and fear. Her body ached, her veins humming like they were full of lightning. Ronan sat nearby, his coat draped over her. Alara stood by the door, silent, watching. What happened? She whispered. You lost control. Your blood responded to your grief. That's how Moonfire power wakes, through pain. Lyra stared at her hands, remembering the way the light had burned from her skin. I could have killed you. Alara's voice softened. You could have killed everyone within a mile. Roman stepped closer, his tone gentle but firm. Which is why we're leaving, now. Alara frowned. You can't hide her forever. The council's already moving. They'll send trackers, assassins, maybe even your father himself. Ronan's eyes flashed. Then let them come. Alara's gaze softened for the first time. You're brave, Prince. But bravery without wisdom is suicide. He ignored her, helping Lyra to her feet. Can you walk? Lyra nodded weakly. Where are we going? North, Ronan said. To the Frostlands. Beyond the border. They won't follow us there. Alara's gaze softened for the first time. You think exile will save her? Ronan turned toward the open door, snow swirling around him. No, he said quietly, but it'll buy her time. And with that, he stepped into the storm. Lyra followed, her first step into a destiny she never asked for. They traveled through endless snow, the forest fading into white silence. The wind howled like a living thing, carrying voices Lyra couldn't tell were real or memory. Ronan led the way, his cloak whipping behind him, every step sure even when the ground vanished beneath snowdrifts. At dusk, they stopped beneath a frozen ridge. Lyra's strength faltered, and she dropped to her knees. I can't. Ronan knelt beside her. You can. His gloved hand brushed her cheek, his eyes softer than she'd ever seen them. You've survived worse. She wanted to argue, to tell him he didn't know what she'd survived, but his words steadied her somehow. She rose again, and they kept moving. When the moon broke through the clouds, silver light spilled across the snow, and for the first time, she saw it. Faint markings glowing across her forearms, curling like firelit runes. Ronan noticed too. It's getting stronger, he murmured. Lyra looked up at him, her breath clouding the air. What if I can't control it? He met her gaze. Then I'll burn with you. The words hit harder than the cold. Before she could answer, a sound echoed from behind, a howl closer than any before. Ronan turned, eyes narrowing. They found us. Lyra's pulse thundered. Snow exploded around them as dark shapes emerged from the trees, rogues with silver chains and blood-red eyes. Ronan drew his blade, the metal gleaming in the moonlight. Stay behind me, he said. Lyra clenched her fists, silver light flickering under her skin. Not this time, she thought. Not anymore. The rogues moved like shadows through the blizzard. 4, maybe 5, their eyes burning crimson in the dark. Chains clinked around their wrists, glowing faintly with runes that pulsed like dying stars. Lyra's pulse thundered in her ears. She could feel them, their hunger, their rage. The air itself vibrated with their scent, iron, smoke, and rot. Ronan stepped forward, blade drawn, his silver eyes gleaming. Stay low, he said, his voice calm, cold, lethal. The first rogue lunged, claws flashing. Ronan met him mid-air, steel cutting through snow and flesh. The creature fell, bleeding black onto white. Another came from behind. Lyra screamed as Ronan twisted, slicing the chain that struck for her. But they kept coming. One broke through the storm and slammed Lyra to the ground. She gasped as claws raked her arm, pain flooding her body like fire. The rogue's breath reeked of blood. Omega, you don't belong to him. Something inside her snapped. The pain turned to heat, wild, blinding. Silver light erupted from her skin, throwing the rogue backward. The snow melted in a circle around her, steam rising. Ronan froze mid-swing, his eyes widening. Lyra stood slowly, trembling, her wounds already sealing shut. The markings on her arms flared like molten metal. The light rippled across the storm, pulsing with every heartbeat. The rogues hesitated, suddenly afraid. And for the first time in her life, Lyra didn't feel like prey. She moved without thinking, without mercy. The snow lifted around her like a living wave, forming a ring of light. The rogues lunged again, but she was faster. Her hand rose, and a burst of silver energy cracked through the air, throwing one into a tree. The other tried to flee, only to freeze mid-step as frost climbed his legs. Ronan could barely keep up. He'd seen warriors fight their whole lives, but nothing like this. Lyra was chaos and grace, a storm of silver flame and snow. Her eyes glowed faintly, 2 small moons in human form. When it was over, silence returned. Steam rose from the melted snow, carrying the faint scent of ash. Lyra dropped to her knees, gasping, trembling. The glow faded, and her body went limp. Ronan caught her before she hit the ground, his sword falling beside them. Lyra, he murmured, shaking her lightly. Breathe. She opened her eyes, dazed. What did I do? He brushed the hair from her face, his thumb gentle against her skin. You fought back. Tears burned behind her eyes. I didn't mean to. He held her closer, his voice rough. Good. The word startled her. She looked up, confused. He met her gaze, Silver and steady. Good, he repeated, because now they know you're not weak anymore. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, one long, mournful sound that sent chills through both of their spines. It wasn't a rogue, it was a signal. They reached shelter by dawn, a half-burned chapel buried in snow. The air inside smelt of smoke and ghosts. Lyra sat against the wall, shivering as Ronan tore a strip of his shirt to wrap her wounded arm. "We can't stay long," he said. "They'll regroup." Lyra nodded weakly. Her body ached, but her mind was worse, buzzing with what she'd done. "I felt everything," she whispered. "Their fear, the snow, the fire in my veins. It wasn't me." Ronan looked at her quietly. "It was you," he said. "Just a part you never met before." The way he said it, soft, certain, made her chest tighten. She wanted to believe him. She looked around the chapel. Half the roof was gone, revealing a sky bruised with dawn. On the altar lay a cracked stone bowl filled with ash. Something about it felt familiar. "What is this place?" she asked. Ronan's expression darkened. It was where they held the mating ceremony every generation, until the fire. Lyra froze. "The mating ceremony?" He nodded slowly. "Your ceremony." The memory slammed into her. Candles, chanting, the sound of chains, the faces of alphas watching from thrones of bone, the cold hands that tried to mark her before she ran. Her stomach twisted. "You brought me back here?" Ronan's voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't know until now." Lyra stood shakily, staring at the altar where her life had almost ended. "Then maybe it's time I finish what they started." Ronan rose quickly, grabbing her arm. "You don't understand what you're saying. That place, those rituals, they were designed to bind you, not empower you." Lyra yanked free, fire in her voice. "Then I'll burn the memory of it." He flinched at her tone, seeing not the frightened Omega who'd hidden in a cabin, but something older, stronger. She walked toward the altar, her footsteps echoing in the hollow space. "All my life, I ran from this, from them, from myself. But every time I run, they find me anyway." Her hand hovered over the ash bowl. It pulsed faintly, as if alive. "Lyra, don't." Too late. The moment her fingers brushed the ash, a silver flame ignited. Visions flooded her mind, her mother screaming under the moonlight, chains around her wrists. A shadowed man standing beside the Alpha King, Ronan's father. And behind him, something worse, a hooded figure whispering, "The blood of the moonfire will bow to us or burn." Lyra gasped, stumbling back. Ronan caught her before she fell. "What did you see?" Her voice shook. "A memory, not mine. My mother's. They tortured her here." He swallowed hard. "Lyra." But she wasn't listening. The fire still burned in her hand, faint but alive. "They killed her for this, and I'm going to make them pay." Ronan's gaze darkened, not with anger, but with fear. "Then you'll become the very thing they wanted." She met his eyes unflinching. Maybe that's exactly what they should fear. Night fell again, painting the ruined chapel in moonlight. Lyra sat near the broken altar, her silver glow faint under her skin. Ronan watched from a distance, torn between duty and something deeper. He could see it now, the power, the defiance, the grief twisting inside her. She wasn't the girl from the cabin anymore. He approached quietly. "We leave at first light," he said. She didn't look up. "To the Frostlands?" He nodded. "If we're lucky, we'll reach the border before the council does." She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "And if we're not lucky?" Ronan's jaw tightened. "Then I'll make sure they only find me." Lyra's breath hitched. "Don't you dare!" He looked at her then, not as a protector or a prince, but as a man caught between love and ruin. You think I'd let them touch you? He said quietly. I'd burn every pack in this realm first. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the air thick with what neither dared to say. Then a faint shimmer glowed through the cracks of the chapel floor, runes carved long ago, now pulsing to life. Lyra froze. Ronan, what is that? He looked down, eyes widening. A tracker spell. The runes blazed brighter, lighting the room in blue fire. Lyra's voice trembled. They found us again. Ronan grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the door. But before they could escape, a familiar voice echoed through the night. Cold, regal, and merciless. Run all you want, son, but no one outruns a king. Ronan turned slowly toward the sound. Standing in the doorway, cloaked in silver armor, was his father, the Alpha King himself. The world went silent as the Alpha King stepped into the chapel. His silver armor glimmered under the moonlight, each plate engraved with the sigil of his reign, a roaring wolf surrounded by fire. His presence filled the air like thunder. Even the snow outside seemed to bow. Ronan's muscles tensed. Father? The king's gaze flicked over him, then to Lyra. So this is what my heir risked the bloodline for, an omega with cursed light. Lyra stepped back instinctively. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs refused to move. The king's eyes burned gold, ancient and cold. You shouldn't be here, Ronan said. His hand was still on his sword, but his voice wavered. The king smirked. And yet, here I am, cleaning your mess. You think you can hide the girl born from the Moonfire line? The council already knows. Lyra's breath caught. Moonfire. The king's attention shifted fully to her now. Your mother carried power stolen from the gods. That mark on your wrist, it isn't a curse, it's a crown. Ronan froze. You knew? The king's voice was steel. I ordered her execution. The words struck like knives. Lyra's pulse roared in her ears. For a moment she thought she might collapse. But the fury came first, bright and alive. You murdered her, she whispered. The king smiled faintly. No, child, I purified her, and I'll do the same to you. The air crackled, silver and gold colliding as Ronan stepped between them. You'll have to kill me first. The Alpha King's smile faded. Then so be it. The clash was blinding. Steel met flame, and the sound echoed across the frozen ruins. Ronan struck first, fast, fierce, but his father was stronger. Every swing of the king's blade carried centuries of domination, bending the air with its weight. Sparks rained around them, lighting the chapel like a dying star. Lyra stumbled backward, shielding her face. The mark on her wrist began to pulse, growing brighter with each clash. She could feel their anger, their shared blood, two wolves bound by pride and pain. The king caught Ronan's arm mid-strike and slammed him against the wall. You always were weak, he hissed. Too much heart, not enough teeth. Ronan gritted his teeth, forcing his father's blade aside. You taught me to fight for my pack. And she, the king spat, pointing toward Lyra, is not your pack. That was when Lyra screamed. The mark on her skin erupted in white light, throwing both men apart. The air shuddered, the runes beneath the floor flaring to life once more. She fell to her knees, clutching her arm. The glow wasn't fading this time, it was spreading. Ronan crawled toward her, fear cutting through the pain. Lyra, stop! You'll burn yourself alive. She looked up, tears mixing with sweat. I can't. It's calling me. The king rose slowly, his expression shifting from rage to something closer to awe. The Moonfire bond, it's awakening. Ronan turned to him, confusion slicing through his fury. What are you talking about? The king's voice dropped to a deadly calm. It means she's not just marked by fate, boy. She's chosen by the moon itself. The floor of the chapel began to crack, glowing from beneath. Wind howled through the broken windows, carrying whispers in a language none of them understood. The moon above turned blood red. Lyra's body shook violently as the mark blazed across her veins like molten silver. "Make it stop," she cried. Ronan caught her, holding her close. "Fight it, Lyra. Don't let it take you." But the king only watched, a grim satisfaction in his eyes. "You can't fight destiny," he said. "You are the vessel, the last of the moonfire blood. When your power completes its awakening, you'll bring balance to the realm or destroy it." Ronan snarled. "And you plan to use her, don't you?" The king's expression hardened. "I plan to control her, as any ruler would control a weapon that could end his kingdom." Lyra's scream shattered the night. Silver light burst from her chest, forming a sigil in the air, a crescent moon bound by chains. The light struck both men, sending them sprawling. When the glow faded, the mark on her skin had changed. It wasn't a scar anymore. It was an unbroken circle, glowing faintly like a living brand. Ronan crawled to her side, terrified. "Lyra, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, faintly silver. "I saw her. My mother. She said the mark was never meant to bind me. It was meant to free me." The king's face drained of color. Impossible. That seal was forged by the elders themselves. Lyra stood shakily, her glow soft but steady. Then maybe the elders forgot something. She looked at both of them, voice trembling but resolute. "You can't cage the moon." The king's composure cracked for the first time. "You don't understand the chaos you carry," he growled. "If that seal breaks completely, every alpha in this realm will feel your power, and they will come for you." "Let them. I'm done hiding." Ronan stepped between them again. "You'll never touch her. Not now, not ever." The king's expression turned cold, his authority cutting through the air. "Then you've chosen your side." Ronan nodded. "I already did." The king raised his hand. Magic shimmered around his fingers, ancient, dark, royal. But before he could strike, Lyra moved. Silver tendrils of light coiled from her palm, wrapping around the king's wrist like vines. The moment they touched, his power shattered, the spell breaking mid-air with a sound like glass cracking. The king gasped, staggering back. "What have you done?" Lyra's eyes were calm now, eerily calm. "I took back what you stole from my mother." He tried to speak, but his voice broke. "You think you've won, girl. You've only woken something far worse." Ronan's grip tightened on his sword. "If you mean the council, we'll face them together." The king gave a slow, bitter smile. "No, I mean the one who taught even the council to fear." And then, as his body flickered in fading magic, a projection, not the real king, his final words echoed through the ruin. "Tell her the name she carries is Lyra Moonfire." The illusion dissolved into smoke, leaving only silence and the faint hum of the moonlight. Lyra stood frozen, that name ringing in her ears. Lyra. That was her name, my mother's. Then it's yours now. Outside, the storm had calmed. The moon hung low, glowing like a wounded eye over the mountains. Lyra and Ronan stood among the ruins, the ashes of the old ceremony still smoldering at their feet. For the first time, she didn't feel afraid of the light inside her. It pulsed quietly beneath her skin, no longer a curse, but a heartbeat. Ronan brushed his thumb over the new mark. "It's still warm," he murmured. Lyra nodded. "It's not done yet. I can feel it. Something's still missing." He looked at her, brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" She glanced toward the horizon, where faint shadows moved among the trees. "Someone's calling to it." Ronan turned sharply, his wolf senses flaring. He could smell them now. A dozen, maybe more. Not rogues, something darker. He reached for his sword. "We need to move." But Lyra didn't move. Her eyes locked on the distant glow rising over the forest. Not fire, not moonlight, but both. "They've awakened, the ones my mother warned me about." "Who?" She turned to him, her voice barely a breath. the moonfire hunters. And before he could speak, the forest erupted in howls, dozens of them, echoing through the night like drums of war. The mark on her wrist flared once more, burning like molten silver. Ronan stepped closer, his hand finding hers. Then we run together. Lyra met his gaze, steady and fierce. "No," she said softly. "This time, we fight." And as the howls grew louder, the moon blazed brighter, ready to witness the beginning of a new war. The frostlands were merciless. Endless white stretched as far as the eye could see, broken only by shards of black rock jutting through the snow like bones. Lyra's cloak fluttered in the icy wind as she trudged behind Ronan, her breath fogging the air. Each step burned, but she didn't dare stop. Behind them, the howls had grown distant, but not gone. Ronan's pace slowed as he scanned the horizon. "They're tracking your scent," he muttered. The mark made it stronger. Lyra frowned, her teeth chattering. "So now I'm glowing and leaving a trail?" He didn't smile. His jaw was tight, his eyes sharp. "We'll need to mask it. There's a cavern ahead." Minutes later, they reached the entrance, a narrow opening carved into the mountain's side, hidden behind frozen vines. Inside, the air was warmer, thick with earth and wolf musk. Lyra collapsed against the wall, shivering uncontrollably. Ronan lit a small fire using broken branches and flint. The faint orange glow painted his face in shadows. "You're freezing," he said. "I'm fine," she lied. He looked at her, really looked, and she knew he could hear her heartbeat stuttering. Slowly, he removed his cloak, stepping closer. "You'll die if you stay soaked like that." "I said I'm fine," she whispered, turning away. But he was already kneeling, wrapping the heavy fur around her shoulders. His scent, pine, smoke, and rain, surrounded her instantly. It made her dizzy. For a moment, the world outside didn't exist. Only the firelight, only the pulse in her throat, only him. And though neither spoke, both knew the truth. Danger wasn't what terrified her anymore. He was. The silence stretched, thick and charged. Lyra tried to focus on the crackle of the fire, but Ronan's presence filled the cavern like gravity. Every time he moved, the air seemed to tighten. He sat across from her, his silver eyes reflecting the flames. "Your scent keeps changing," he said quietly. She blinked. "My what?" "Your scent," he repeated, voice low. "It used to be fear, then anger. Now it's something else." Her cheeks burned. "You shouldn't say things like that." He tilted his head, wolfish curiosity in his expression. "Why? You can smell mine too, can't you?" She hesitated, then nodded once. His scent was strong, dominance, warmth, and something wild underneath it, something that made her chest tighten. "It doesn't mean anything," she said quickly. "Then why won't you look at me?" he asked. Lyra glared at him, though her pulse betrayed her. "Because you make it hard to breathe." That silenced him. For a moment, neither moved. Then Ronan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "If it helps, you make it hard for me to think." The words hit her like lightning. She turned away, staring into the flames. "You shouldn't say that," she murmured. "You're a prince. I'm a—" "Don't," he interrupted. "Don't say you're just an omega." His voice softened, rough with emotion. "You're the reason I stopped believing in destiny." And when she finally looked at him, she saw the truth burning behind his eyes. Not command, not power, but longing. Real, dangerous, irrevocable. Hours passed. The fire dimmed to embers, and outside, snow fell heavier. Lyra lay against the wall, half asleep, her mind racing between warmth and terror. Ronan hadn't spoken again, but she could feel him, every heartbeat, every slow exhale from across the cave. Then came the scent of smoke. Not theirs. Ronan's head snapped up instantly, instincts flaring. "They're here." He moved soundlessly, stepping toward the entrance. Lyra followed, her pulse hammering. Outside, faint torchlight flickered between the trees. The hunters had found their trail. Ronan turned to her. "They're too close. We can't outrun them tonight. What do we do?" He hesitated, then said something she didn't expect. "Trust me." Before she could ask what he meant, he took her hand and pressed it to his bare neck. His skin was hot, his pulse wild. "What are you doing?" "Hide your scent in mine," he said. "It's the only way." Her breath caught. She could feel the faint hum of his wolf beneath her palm. The bond between them flickered, fragile, electric. "You'll have to let me in," he murmured, "completely." She froze. That's a claiming bond." "It's survival," he replied, eyes burning. "Just this once." Outside, the footsteps grew louder. The torches were nearly at the cave. Lyra swallowed hard, staring into his silver eyes. Then she nodded. The moment their hands intertwined, the world changed. A pulse of heat shot through her veins, spreading outward, glowing faintly under her skin. She gasped, gripping his arm as his energy flooded hers. Steady, primal, alive. Ronan's breath hitched. "Lyra." She could feel his wolf brushing against hers, not forcing, just asking. It wasn't dominance, it was connection. Her scent merged with his, the line between them blurring until she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Her knees weakened, but Ronan caught her before she fell, pulling her close. His chest was solid against hers, his heart beat a drum beneath her ear. Outside, the torches flickered past the cave entrance, too close. She held her breath. Ronan's eyes met hers, glowing faintly in the dark. Every second stretched into forever, the warmth of his breath, the tension between restraint and surrender. Finally, the footsteps faded, the torches drifting away into the storm. Lyra exhaled shakily, but Ronan didn't move. Neither did she. The bond was still there, alive, humming, dangerous. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "You said it was just survival." He nodded slowly. "I lied." The fire had long since died, but the heat between them hadn't. Lyra stepped back, her pulse still racing. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. Ronan looked at her unflinchingly. "Would you rather be dead?" "That's not the point," she said. "That bond, it's not supposed to happen like this." He took a slow breath, trying to steady himself. "I know." Silence fell, broken only by the wind outside. Then Lyra asked, barely above a whisper, "What happens now?" Ronan looked away. "Now you're marked by me, even if I didn't mean to. Every alpha in the realm will sense it." Her stomach dropped. "Then I'm as good as dead." She stepped closer, eyes fierce. "Not while I'm alive." Something flickered behind her ribs. Fear, hope, maybe both. "Why are you doing this, Ronan? You don't even know who I am." His gaze softened. "I don't need to. I feel who you are, and I won't let them take you." Outside, the howl started again, distant, angry, vengeful. But this time, Lyra didn't tremble. She stood taller, her fingers brushing the glowing mark on her wrist. "They can hunt me all they want," she said quietly, "but I'm done running." Ronan's eyes glinted like molten silver. "Then they'll learn what happens when the hunted turns into the storm." And as dawn broke across the frostlands, two silhouettes stood side by side in the snow, the runaway and the alpha prince, their fates now bound by the bond neither of them meant to make. The frostland slept beneath a crimson dawn. Lyra woke to silence, but it wasn't peace. The air trembled faintly, heavy with something unseen. She blinked, dazed. The cave was gone. The fire was gone. She stood in a vast field of silver grass beneath a burning red sky. A dream, she thought, but it felt too real. The air smelled of smoke and moonlight. Then she heard it. A low hum, soft as breath, vibrating beneath her feet. The ground glowed faintly, veins of molten light spreading outward like roots. In the distance, a figure walked toward her, tall, slow, and wreathed in flame. "Who are you?" she whispered. The figure stopped. A woman stepped forward, her hair silver as frost, her eyes blazing like molten gold. Her voice echoed everywhere and nowhere. "You carry what they tried to destroy." Lyra's heart pounded. "You're my mother?" The woman smiled sadly. "You've seen the truth then. They burned the Moonfire temples. They erased our name from the histories. But they could not kill the bond." Lyra stepped closer, trembling. "Why me? Why this mark?" "Because the bond chose love over power, and love terrifies kings." The sky flared. The woman reached out, touching Lyra's cheek with a hand made of light. "He'll burn for you, child. And when he does, you must decide whether to save him or save the world." Then everything shattered, fire, wind, and the sound of her own heartbeat breaking. Lyra jolted awake, gasping. The cave was still dark. The fire was gone. But Ronan was beside her, his face pale, sweat beading his forehead. His body trembled as if trapped in the same storm she just escaped. "Ronan!" she whispered, shaking him. His eyes snapped open, glowing red instead of silver. He sat up, breathing hard. "I saw her." Lyra froze. "You... what?" "The woman," he said, voice rough. "Silver hair, eyes like fire. She called me her son of ruin." Lyra's stomach dropped. "That was my mother." He looked at her sharply. "No, that was the Moonfire itself." For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them felt too heavy to carry. Then Ronan touched his chest, grimacing. "She said something else, that the bonds between us isn't an accident." Lyra shook her head. "It can't be. I never wanted." He interrupted. "Neither did I. But it's here, it's real, and now the moon's chosen both of us for something we don't understand." She swallowed her throat tight. "My mother said when you burned for me, I'll have to choose." His gaze locked on hers, fierce and pained. "Then pray you never have to." But the look in his eyes told her the truth. Whatever fire her mother spoke of, it had already begun to burn. Outside, the first sparks of sunrise lit the snow like dying embers. The frostlands were no longer quiet. Wolves were moving, and far away, in the shadow of the mountains, something older than both of them had started to wake. By the time the sun reached the peaks, they were moving again. The frostlands stretched behind them, endless and cold, but ahead lay the forest, dark, thick, alive. "We'll reach the border by nightfall," Ronan said. "There's a settlement under my protection." She nodded, though exhaustion dragged at her bones. Every few minutes she caught glimpses, flashes of fire at the edge of her vision, whispers that weren't there. The mark on her wrist glowed faintly under her sleeve. Ronan noticed. "It's reacting again." She hid her hand. "It does that when I'm scared." He gave her a sideways glance. "Then you've been scared since I met you." That made her smile, small and reluctant. "Maybe I have." His lips twitched. "Then we'll change that." The forest thickened, swallowing them in shadows and fog. Every sound echoed, the crunch of snow, the rustle of branches, their own breathing. Then a new sound cut through the air, the crack of a twig behind them. Ronan froze instantly. His hands shot out, grabbing Lyra's wrist and pulling from behind a tree. He inhaled sharply, scenting the air. "Rogues?" she whispered. He shook his head slowly. "No. Worse." A low growl rippled through the trees, deeper than any wolf. Ronan's sword was out in a flash, silver glinting. "Run when I say," he murmured. But Lyra didn't move. Something in the shadows was calling her name. Not with a voice, with memory. A figure stepped from the mist, cloaked in black, face hidden by a hood. The scent hit first, old magic, iron, and blood. "Who are you?" Ronan demanded. The figure didn't answer. Instead, it raised its hand. A silver flame flickered in its palm, the same color as Lyra's mark. Her heart stopped. "That's moonfire." The stranger's head tilted slightly. "You carry what they tried to destroy," came a voice, male, low, and cold. "Give it back." Ronan moved in front of her instantly. "She's not yours to touch." The figure laughed softly. "She was never yours either, Prince." Then with a gesture, the flame exploded outward. Trees burst into ash. Ronan threw himself around Lyra, shielding her from the blast. The world became noise and light and heat. When the air cleared, the figure stood untouched. "The bond between you defies the natural order. The moonfire cannot be shared. It must choose." Lyra pushed free from Ronan's arms, anger trembling in her voice. "Then let it choose." Her mark on her wrist flared, answering her. The stranger's hood fell back, revealing eyes made of molten silver. Ronan's blood ran cold. "No, that's impossible." The stranger smiled. "Hello, brother." Lyra froze, her breath caught in her throat. Ronan's world tilted. His voice was barely a whisper. "Kill." The brother he'd buried 10 years ago was standing before him, alive, glowing, and carrying the fire of gods. Ronan's blade trembled in his grip. "You died in the Eastern War," he rasped. Kale's smile widened, cruel and beautiful. "I died as a man. I was reborn as something greater." Lyra stepped forward, heart pounding. "You're one of them. The hunters." Kale nodded slowly. "The first one. The prototype. Father's perfect weapon." Ronan's chest tightened. "You turned him into this?" "Into what I was always meant to be. And now, brother, he wants her." Her hands burned. The mark glowed brighter, responding to Kale's energy. He raised a hand toward her. "You feel it, don't you? The pull between us. The moonfire calls to its other half." Ronan moved before he could finish, slashing his blade in a brilliant arc. Kale blocked it effortlessly, the clash sending shockwaves through the trees. Lyra fell to her knees, clutching her wrist. The light within it screamed, splitting her vision into shards of fire and moonlight. Through the chaos, one thought cut clear, her mother's voice whispering from somewhere beyond the veil. The forest was no longer quiet. Every shadow seemed alive, every gust of wind carrying the growl of something ancient. Ronan and Kale circled each other beneath the dying trees, the frost melting into mist around their feet. "Still playing protector, brother?" Kale's voice was smooth as glass. "You were born for more than guarding the weak." Ronan's grip on his blade tightened. "You were born to lead beside me, not destroy what's left of our kind." Kale laughed softly, a sound without warmth. "Our kind? You mean those who chained the moonfire to bloodlines and ceremonies, who turned the goddess's gift into a weapon?" Lyra's heart thudded painfully. Every word Kale spoke felt wrong, yet something deep inside her stirred, as if her soul recognized the same fire he carried. Ronan took a step forward, his eyes silver bright. Whatever father did to you, it doesn't give you the right to become a monster. Kale's grin faded. Monster? I became what you were too afraid to be. He lifted his hand and the air split with the crack. Fire erupted between them, not red, not gold, but silver blue, the pure color of moonfire. Ronan lunged through the flames, their blades colliding with a sound that shattered the air. Sparks flew like falling stars. Lyra fell back, shielding her eyes. Through the blaze, she saw them, two silhouettes locked in fury and heartbreak. Brothers. Enemies. And for the first time, she realized the moonfire wasn't punishing them. It was watching. The clash of steel and fire filled the forest. Ronan fought like a storm, wild, relentless, but Kale was faster, his movements almost inhuman. Every strike carried a pulse of burning light that sent shockwaves through the trees. "Stop this," Lyra cried, voice raw. "You'll kill each other." Kale spun toward her, his eyes glowing like molten metal. "He's already dead, little moon. He just doesn't know it yet." Ronan snarled, his wolf surfacing beneath his skin. His voice deepened into a growl. "Don't touch her." Kale smiled, and something in that smile made Lyra's blood freeze. "You think you're protecting her? You're only delaying the inevitable. The bond between you was never meant to exist. It's breaking the world's balance." "I don't care," Ronan spat. "She's mine." Kale tilted his head. "Then you'll die for her." With the flick of his wrist, he sent a blast of moonfire straight toward Lyra. Ronan moved faster than thought, diving in front of her. The light struck his chest, throwing him backward into the snow. "Ronan!" she screamed, running to him. His skin burned with silver fire, the scent of scorched magic thick in the air. Kale watched in silence. That's the price of loving something divine. Lyra's tears hit the ground, sizzling as they touched the frost. The mark on her wrist pulsed, brighter, louder, alive. She looked up, eyes blazing. "Then you'll pay it too." And for the first time, Kale looked uncertain. The mark on her wrist ignited like a star. The forest trembled, the ground cracking open beneath her feet. A voice, ancient, melodic, fierce, rose in her mind. "Child of moonfire, remember who you are." Silver flames erupted from her palms, spiraling into the air. Snow turned to steam. The air shimmered with divine heat. Kale took a step back, eyes wide. "That's impossible. The bond shouldn't awaken like this." Lyra didn't hear him. The world had become sound and light, every heartbeat merging with the rhythm of the moon itself. Ronan's body glowed faintly where the flames had struck him, the bonds between them pulsing through his wounds. Kale tried to raise his hand again, to summon power, but his flame flickered, unstable. "Stop, Lyra! You'll destroy everything!" She met his gaze, tears and fury mingling. "You already did." The light surged outward, engulfing the clearing. Trees exploded into ash. Kale screamed, not in pain, but in awe, as the fire swallowed him whole. When the flames faded, silence fell. The forest was gone. Only snow and smoke remained. Lyra collapsed beside Ronan, shaking. His chest rose weakly, breath ragged but real. "Don't you dare die on me," she whispered. "You promised to make me unafraid." His eyes flooded open, silver dimming. "Guess I broke that promise." She smiled through her tears. "Then make a new one." He reached up, brushing a strand of her hair aside. "Fine. I promise to live." And for the first time since the night began, she believed him. They spent the night under the shattered sky. The fire that had nearly destroyed them now burned low, quiet and soft. Ronan leaned against a fallen log, his body covered in bandages. Lyra sat beside him, tracing faint circles on his wrist, right where his pulse beat strongest. "You shouldn't have taken that hit," she murmured. He chuckled weakly. "You'd have done the same." She didn't answer. Her gaze lingered on the snow, where Cale had stood. There was no body, no ashes, no trace, just silence. "He's not gone," Ronan said, as if reading her thoughts. "I can still feel him. The bond of blood doesn't vanish that easily." Lyra shivered. "Then he'll come back." The forest was no longer quiet. Every shadow seemed alive, every gust of wind carrying the growl of something ancient. Ronan and Cale circled each other beneath the dying trees, the frost melting into mist around their feet. "Still playing protector, brother?" Cale's voice was smooth as glass. "You were born for more than guarding the weak." Ronan's grip on his blade tightened. "You were born to lead beside me, not destroy what's left of our kind." Cale laughed softly, a sound without warmth. "Our kind? You mean those who chained the moonfire to bloodlines and ceremonies, who turned the goddess's gift into a weapon?" Lyra's heart thudded painfully. Every word Cale spoke felt wrong, yet something deep inside her stirred, as if her soul recognized the same fire he carried. Ronan took a step forward, his eyes silver bright. "Whatever Father did to you, it doesn't give you the right to become a monster." Cale's grin faded. "Monster? I became what you were too afraid to be." He lifted his hand and the air split with the crack. Fire erupted between them, not red, not gold, but silver blue, the pure color of moonfire. Ronan lunged through the flames, their blades colliding with a sound that shattered the air. Sparks flew like falling stars. Lyra fell back, shielding her eyes. Through the blaze, she saw them, two silhouettes locked in fury and heartbreak. Brothers. Enemies. And for the first time, she realized the moonfire wasn't punishing them. It was watching. The clash of steel and fire filled the forest. Ronan fought like a storm, wild, relentless, but Cale was faster, his movements almost inhuman. Every strike carried a pulse of burning light that sent shockwaves through the trees. "Stop this," Lyra cried, voice raw. "You'll kill each other." Cale spun toward her, his eyes glowing like molten metal. "He's already dead, little moon. He just doesn't know it yet." Ronan snarled, his wolf surfacing beneath his skin. His voice deepened into a growl. "Don't touch her." Cale smiled, and something in that smile made Lyra's blood freeze. "You think you're protecting her? You're only delaying the inevitable. The bond between you was never meant to exist. It's breaking the world's balance." "I don't care," Ronan spat. "She's mine." Cale tilted his head. "Then you'll die for her." With the flick of his wrist, he sent a blast of moonfire straight toward Lyra. Ronan moved faster than thought, diving in front of her. The light struck his chest, throwing him backward into the snow. "Ronan!" she screamed, running to him. His skin burned with silver fire, the scent of scorched magic thick in the air. Cale watched in silence. That's the price of loving something divine. Lyra's tears hit the ground, sizzling as they touched the frost. The mark on her wrist pulsed, brighter, louder, alive. She looked up, eyes blazing. "Then you'll pay it too." And for the first time, Cale looked uncertain. The mark on her wrist ignited like a star. The forest trembled, the ground cracking open beneath her feet. A voice, ancient, melodic, fierce, rose in her mind. "Child of moonfire, remember who you are." Silver flames erupted from her palms, spiraling into the air. Snow turned to steam. The air shimmered with divine heat. Kale took a step back, eyes wide. That's impossible. The bond shouldn't awaken like this. Lyra didn't hear him. The world had become sound and light, every heartbeat merging with the rhythm of the moon itself. Ronan's body glowed faintly where the flames had struck him, the bond between them pulsing through his wounds. Kale tried to raise his hand again, to summon power, but his flame flickered, unstable. Stop, Lyra, you'll destroy everything. She met his gaze, tears and fury mingling. You already did. The light surged outward, engulfing the clearing. Trees exploded into ash. Kale screamed, not in pain but in awe, as the fire swallowed him whole. When the blaze faded, silence fell. The forest was gone. Only snow and smoke remained. Lyra collapsed beside Ronan, shaking. His chest rose weakly, breath ragged but real. Don't you dare die on me, she whispered. You promised to make me unafraid. His eyes fluttered open, silver dimming. Guess I broke that promise. She smiled through her tears. Then make a new one. He reached up, brushing a strand of her hair aside. Fine, I promise to live. And for the first time since the night began, she believed him. They spent the night beneath the shattered sky. The fire that had nearly destroyed them now burned low, quiet and soft. Ronan leaned against the fallen log, his body covered in bandages. Lyra sat beside him, tracing faint circles on his wrist, right where his pulse beat strongest. You shouldn't have taken that hit, she murmured. He chuckled weakly. You'd have done the same. She didn't answer. Her gaze lingered on the snow, where Kale had stood. There was no body, no ashes, no trace, just silence. He's not gone, Ronan said, as if reading her thoughts. I can still feel him. The bond of blood doesn't vanish that easily. Lyra shivered. Then he'll come back. Ronan's jaw tightened. And next time, he won't be alone. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a scent she couldn't place. Iron, smoke, and something else. Rest, he said softly. Tomorrow we head for the border. The northern clans owe me a favor. She nodded, but her eyes drifted toward the stars. The moon hung heavy and full, glowing like a silent witness. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. Low, mournful, endless. Lyra touched her mark, feeling the faint echo of its power. I saw something, she whispered. When the fire came, I saw a crown, broken, and blood on the snow. Ronan's gaze darkened. Then the war is already begun. Long after he fell asleep, Lyra sat awake, staring into the dying flames. The forest was quiet again, too quiet. Her thoughts wouldn't rest. Her mother's words haunted her still. He'll burn for you, and when he does, you must decide whether to save him or the world. She thought about Ronan's heartbeat under her hands, the warmth of him, the way he looked at her like she was the only thing real in the chaos. And she thought about Kale, the brother who had once died a hero, now reborn a weapon. Love and blood, fire and shadow. It was all the same story told again and again under the moon. She closed her eyes and whispered, Please, Goddess, if I must choose, don't make it soon. But the wind carried no answer. Only the soft flutter of wings as a raven landed nearby, its eyes gleaming silver. It watched her for a moment, then flew off toward the mountains. She followed its path until it disappeared into the mist. Somewhere beyond that horizon, Kale was still alive, and the power that changed him was spreading. Tomorrow they would run again. But for tonight, she let herself rest beside the man she loved, under the same moon that would one day demand her heart. The blood moon rose like a wound in the sky. Red light bled across the frozen valley, staining the snow crimson. Every wolf in the north howled that night, every one except Ronan. He sat in silence, staring into the flames, his face shadowed, unreadable. Lyra watched him from across the fire. He hadn't spoken in hours. His shirt was gone, the bandages around his chest glowing faintly where the moonfire had touched him. Every breath he took seemed to hurt. "The blood moon doesn't rise without reason," she said softly. He looked up, eyes silver and sharp. "It rises for blood. It always has." Lyra's heart pounded. She heard the legends. The blood moon was when the goddess tested wolves, when instincts grew stronger, bonds deeper, and control weaker. "You're afraid," she whispered. Ronan's jaw flexed. "You should be too." The wind outside howled through the cracks of the old stone keep they'd taken shelter in. The light flickered, painting him in red and shadow. "I can't thinking about you," he said suddenly, the words breaking out like he'd been holding them in for years. "Even when I try to stay away, it's like you're under my skin." Lyra froze. Her pulse quickened. "Ronan." He stood slowly, crossing the fire toward her. "You don't understand what this moon does. It amplifies everything. The bond, the desire, the rage." She swallowed hard, backing slightly as his aura thickened, alpha energy filling the air like thunder. He stopped just a breath away, voice low. "If I lose control tonight, you have to promise you'll run." She didn't move, didn't breathe. The firelight danced between them, reflecting in his eyes, silver burning into scarlet. "Why would I run from you?" she whispered. "Because I'm not sure I can't stop myself." The confession shook something inside her. Not fear, but longing. The same pull that had haunted her since the first night in the cabin. Every part of her body screamed danger, but her soul whispered, "Closer." He turned away, fists clenched. "You don't understand what it means to bond with an alpha under the blood moon. It's irreversible, eternal. It's not love, it's surrender." Lyra rose slowly. "Then maybe that's what love is." The words hit him harder than a blade. His breath caught. He turned, eyes wide, and for a second, the alpha vanished, leaving only the man. "You'd give up your freedom for me?" She shook her head gently. "No, I'd fight beside you, if you'd let me." Ronan's restraint cracked. His hand reached out, trembling as it touched her cheek. Heat flooded her skin, the bond thrumming like a heartbeat between them. "Lyra," he breathed, his voice breaking. "If we do this, there's no one doing it." "Then stop talking," she whispered, eyes glistening. And he did. The world fell away. The fire roared, the wind screamed through the ruins, and the blood moon watched as two fates finally collided, not in control, but in surrender. When it was over, the world felt still. The blood moon had sunk lower, its red glow dimming into soft silver. Lyra lay against Ronan's chest, her breath steady, their heartbeats sinking, one rhythm, one pulse. But the air around them had changed. She could feel it, a shift deep in the earth, in the magic, in the silence. The goddess had seen. Ronan's hand brushed her hair, his voice barely above a whisper. "You shouldn't have done that. You've bound yourself to me now." She smiled faintly, her eyes half closed. "I already was." His throat tightened. He wanted to believe it was that simple, but something inside him trembled, a flicker of fear he couldn't explain. He pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "I'll protect you," he murmured, "even from myself." She looked up at him, seeing the guilt behind his eyes. You can't keep blaming yourself for everything, Ronan. He stared into the fire, jaw clenched. You don't understand. Every alpha who bonds under the blood moon becomes marked by fate. Their soul belongs not just to the one they love, but to the moon. And the moon always takes what it's owed. Lyra frowned, confusion mixing with dread. What do you mean? Before he could answer, the fire hissed, flaring higher, burning blue. The smell of smoke turned sharp, metallic. Ronan stood instantly, eyes widening. No, because in the flames, a symbol had formed, a black crown, bleeding light. Kale's mark. The ground trembled beneath them. The keep's old stones groaned, dust raining from the ceiling. Outside, a horn echoed, long, low, and full of warning. Ronan grabbed his sword, scanning the shadows. They found us. Lyra stood, heart pounding. Kale? Not just him. Ronan's voice was grim. The Council's armies. He's leading them. She felt her stomach drop. He knows about the bond. Ronan nodded once, and he'll use it to destroy us both. The doors of the keep shuddered under the weight of impact. Boom, boom, splinters flew. Ronan pushed Lyra toward the back corridor. There's a tunnel beneath the east tower. Run. Follow the ravine to the northern cliffs. Don't stop. She shook her head, tears filling her eyes. I'm not leaving you. Ronan grabbed her shoulders, his grip firm but shaking. If you stay, you die. Do you understand me? He'll kill you just to break me. Her lips trembled. Then let him kill me. Ronan froze. The air seemed to vanish. Then slowly, he leaned his forehead against hers, whispering, Don't say that. Don't ever say that. The doors exploded inward, wood and fire scattering like ash. Ronan turned, his eyes now pure silver, voice dropping into a growl that made the air vibrate. Go. Lyra hesitated 1 second too long, long enough to see him shift. The alpha inside him erupted, bones cracking, fur bursting through skin, his form growing massive, monstrous, beautiful. And then he roared, a sound that shook the mountains. Lyra ran, through the tunnels, through the cold, through the storm. The earth quaked behind her as Ronan's roar echoed through the valley. Every instinct screamed to turn back, but his voice haunted her still. Run. She stumbled out into the open snow, gasping. The moonlight bled red across the cliffs, and far below she saw it. Hundreds of torches, moving like rivers of fire. The Council's army. A shadow passed overhead. She looked up just in time to see a raven circling the moon, its feathers glowing silver. The same raven from before. It cawed once, then dove toward the battlefield. Lyra's breath hitched. No, he's going to die. She took 1 step forward, and the mark on her wrist seared with pain. Her knees buckled. She screamed, clutching it as it blazed with silver fire. Images flashed through her mind. Kale raising his blade, Ronan surrounded by flames, the blood moon turning black. And then, a voice. Soft, sorrowful, familiar. Child of moonfire, the time for running is over. Lyra looked up, tears streaming down her face. Then let me fight. The mark answered with light. Power surged through her veins, flooding her body with impossible strength. The snow beneath her feet melted into steam. Far below, the battlefield waited. And under the dying moon, Lyra shifted for the first time, her form glowing like silver fire. The Omega the world rejected had become the weapon the goddess had hidden.
The night split open with fire and screams. Snow turned black under the weight of burning arrows. The council's soldiers advanced across the valley, their armor glinting like shards of steel beneath the crimson moon. Wolves howled from every ridge, hundreds, maybe thousands, answering one call, war. At the center of it all, Ronan stood tall, his wolf towering over the flames. His silver fur shimmered with light and blood, his roar shaking the mountains. Around him, warriors from the fallen packs fought with desperate fury. They were outnumbered, but not broken. From the ridge above, Kale watched with cold amusement. His black armor gleamed like oil, his sword pulsing with dark fire. "Fitting," he said softly, "that the world burns because of love." Beside him, a robed figure bowed. "The prophecy unfolds, my lord." Kale smirked. "No, the prophecy obeys me." Then, a sound split the air, a cry high and wild, cutting through the chaos like light breaking darkness. Every head turned, even Kale froze. From the northern cliffs, something luminous moved through the storm, silver, blazing, alive. Lyra descended like a falling star, her wolf form radiant, her eyes glowing white with divine fire. The ground trembled with each step she took. Whispers rippled through the battlefield. "The moonfire has returned." Kale's expression shifted. Awe, rage, disbelief. "Impossible," he hissed. But Ronan lifted his head, eyes finding hers through smoke and blood. For one fragile heartbeat, the world went silent. Then Lyra roared, a sound so powerful it shattered the sky. And the war began anew. The two armies collided like waves against rock. Wolves leapt through fire, claws meeting steel, teeth sinking into flesh. The air was thick with the scent of blood and burning wood. Lyra fought like something born from the moon itself. Every movement was fluid, terrifyingly precise, her silver flames slicing through shadows, leaving trails of light behind. Wherever she moved, the tide shifted. But Kale was no longer just a wolf. His power had twisted, merging with something older and darker. Shadows bled from his body, his sword glowing with the essence of corrupted moonfire. He cut through his own men, driven by rage and obsession. "You were never meant to wield that light," he shouted, his eyes blazing as he met Lyra on the battlefield. Their powers collided in an explosion of silver and black fire. The shockwave tore through the ranks, throwing soldiers aside like leaves. Lyra staggered back, panting, her fur smoking where his blade had grazed her. "Why are you doing this, Kale? You're his brother." Kale's face twisted with fury. "Exactly. I was his brother, his shadow, but one the moon ignored." He raised his sword again, but Ronan was there, crashing into him with the force of a mountain. "Then stop blaming the moon," Ronan snarled, his voice like thunder. "Blame yourself." The brothers clashed again, silver against black, love against hatred, and every strike shook the heavens. Above them, the blood moon pulsed faster, hungrier, as if watching, as if waiting. The battle raged until dawn began to bleed over the mountains. The snow was red now, thick with steam and ash. Lyra's power burned hotter with every heartbeat, but her strength was fading. Every surge of moonfire left her trembling, her vision blurring. She could feel it, the bond pulling, draining, trying to protect Ronan even when her body couldn't keep up. Ronan's wolf stumbled, blood streaking his fur. Kale's blade had found its mark more than once. "Ronan!" she screamed. He turned, eyes meeting hers, and in that instant, Kale struck. The sword plunged deep into Ronan's side. Time froze. Lyra's scream split the valley. Her light exploded outward, hurling Kale back with a blast of pure energy. She ran to Ronan, falling to her knees beside him. Blood soaked the snow, black and silver. "No, no, no!" she whispered, pressing her hands to the wound. "You're not leaving me." He coughed, his breath shallow. "It's okay, little wolf." She shook her head, tears falling fast. "Don't you dare." Cale staggered to his feet, sword raised again, eyes wild. "He's mine to end." Lyra rose slowly, her body trembling with fury. "No," she said, voice cold as death. "He's mine to save." The mark on her wrist burned open, the silver fire surging one last time. The light that erupted wasn't just power, it was the moon itself answering her call, and the battlefield turned to daylight. The light blinded everyone. Cale screamed, stumbling backward as his own power began to unravel. The corrupted fire in his veins rebelled, burning him from within. Ronan lay still, his body caught between life and death, the bond flickering weakly between them. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes no longer mortal, twin stars of divine fire. Her voice was not entirely her own when she spoke. "You sought to control the moon's gift, Cale. You forgot it was never yours to wield." Cale fell to his knees, his sword slipping from his hand. "She abandoned me," he rasped. "I only wanted to be seen." Lyra's expression softened for a heartbeat. Then she raised her hand. "Then see this." She unleashed the light. It wasn't cruel, it was cleansing. Cale's scream faded into silence as the shadow burned away, leaving only his silver wolf form in the snow, still, peaceful. The fire faded, the sky cleared, the blood moon dimmed, turning back to white. Lyra fell to her knees, exhaustion crushing her. She turned toward Ronan, her voice breaking. "Please, come back." The bond pulsed once, then again. His chest rose, shallow but steady. Ronan opened his eyes, the faintest smile ghosting his lips. "You didn't run." She laughed through tears, pressing her forehead to his. "You told me not to." Around them, the surviving wolves dropped their weapons, bowing low. For the first time in centuries, the war was over and the moon was quiet. By morning, the valley was still. Smoke drifted through the cold air, carrying the scent of ashes and new beginnings. The dead lay silent under the snow, their souls at rest under the pale dawn. Lyra and Ronan stood at the edge of the battlefield. She leaned against him, weak but alive, her mark still glowing faintly. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Ronan looked toward the rising sun. "We rebuild. We start over. For the ones who can't." She nodded, her eyes tracing the horizon where Kel's body rested under a blanket of frost, his sword buried beside him. "I hope he found peace," she whispered. Ronan's hand brushed hers. "He will. You gave it to him." A moment of silence passed, then Lyra smiled faintly. "You know, I never thought I'd end up saving a prince." He turned to her, a rare spark of warmth in his tired eyes. "You didn't save a prince." She frowned. "No?" He smiled. "You saved a wolf." The wind carried their laughter across the empty field, soft and fragile, but real. As they walked away from the ruins, the moon faded behind the clouds, leaving only the first light of dawn. And though they didn't see it, the snow where their footprints fell began to shimmer faintly, as if the goddess herself had laid her blessing there. For in every war between shadow and flame, only love remains unburned. And that night, the legend of the last wolf standing was born. The battlefield had turned to silence.
What had once been a valley of blood and flame was now nothing but white, endless snow falling softly over ashes. Every wolf who had survived walked among ghosts, searching for names, faces, answers. But all Lyra could see was light, faint, dying light slipping through her fingers. She stood where Kyle had fallen, her breath forming pale clouds in the frozen dawn. The snow beneath her feet glowed faintly silver, still humming with the last echo of moonfire. Her mark burned weakly, its once vibrant pulse fading with each heartbeat. Ronan watched her from a distance, his side wrapped in bandages, his eyes darker than the storm above. He wanted to go to her, gods he wanted to, but he knew she needed space to grieve. "Your light saved us," one of the elders whispered behind her. "But every fire has a price." She turned slowly, her voice quiet. "What kind of fire saves and still burns everything it touches?" The elder bowed his head. "The kind that comes from love." She looked back toward the horizon where dawn bled across the sky like a healing wound. Her hair was tangled, her gown torn, but there was something unearthly about her still, something no crown could ever equal. When the surviving wolves knelt in the snow, they did not call her Alpha. They called her Queen, but Lyra only lowered her gaze, tears glinting in the cold light, because she knew something they didn't. Her light was dying. By the third sunrise, they had buried the fallen. The snow was still red in places, but the world was slowly, painfully turning clean again. Lyra spent her mornings in the ruins of the old temple, tracing runes she barely understood, searching for answers the moon refused to give. The air there always smelled faintly of silver, like memory. Ronan limped into the temple one afternoon, silent as the shadows that followed him. He leaned on the pillar, watching her work. "You're not resting," he said softly. She didn't look up. "I can't. Lyra, if the moonfire leaves me completely, you'll die." He froze. "What are you talking about?" "The bond, Ronan. It's anchored to that power. If I lose it, the bond breaks. And so do you." The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. He moved closer, his voice rough. "Then I'd rather break with you than live without you." Her hands trembled. "Don't say that." He reached out, brushing his thumb against her jaw. "It's not a choice, little wolf. You're my mate. You always were." For a heartbeat, her walls shattered. She leaned into his touch, and for the first time since the war, she let herself cry. Outside, the wind snowed harder, as if the sky itself mourned with her. Because love had survived the fire, but it was fading with the light. The council gathered 3 nights later, survivors from every pack, bound now by loyalty and fear. They met in the stone hall beneath the mountain, the walls lined with flickering torches. The bond between Alpha Ronan and the Moonfire Queen has restored peace, but her strength wanes. Without it, our enemies will return. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some bowed their heads, others looked at her with quiet desperation. Lyra stood before them, her mark dim beneath the torchlight. She said, "The moonfire was never meant to be eternal. It was meant to cleanse, to end what was broken. The rest is up to us." "Then what of you? Without it, will you survive?" She hesitated, and that silence was her answer. Ronan stepped forward, his voice a low growl. "Enough. She gave everything for us. You will not ask her for more." The elders fell silent, uneasy beneath his gaze. Lyra placed a gentle hand on his arm. "They're not wrong to ask. A kingdom built on borrowed fire won't last." She turned toward the council, her expression calm, but her voice trembling. "If the moonfire fades, and I with it, promise me this. Protect him. Protect what we've built." Ronan's jaw tightened. "Don't talk like that." But she only smiled faintly, her eyes soft and unbearably sad. "Then don't make me a queen, Ronan. Make me a promise." Later that night, Lyra sat by the frozen lake where everything had begun. The moonlight danced across the ice, casting her reflection back at her. Pale, ghostly, unfamiliar. She could feel it now, the slow unraveling of power in her veins. The mark on her wrist glowed faintly before dimming again. each flicker was a heartbeat closer to the end. I thought being chosen by the moon meant strength, but maybe it meant sacrifice. The wind stirred, carrying faint whispers across the snow. Every light must return to the sky, the voice murmured, old, gentle, and endless. Tears welled in her eyes. Then let me go quietly. But the voice faded, leaving only silence. Footsteps crunched behind her. Ronan's scent, pine, steel, and smoke reached her before his touch did. He sat beside her, his coat brushing hers. Whatever you heard, he said softly, ignore it. The moon doesn't get to take you from me. She looked at him, eyes glistening. You can't fight a goddess. He met her gaze steady and fierce. Watch me. For a long moment they just sat there, the warrior and the girl who carried the fire of the moon, the king and the queen made of ashes and snow. Above them, the clouds parted just enough for one last beam of silver light to touch her face. And though neither of them spoke, both knew the truth. Her time was running out. By dawn, word had spread across every pack. The Moonfire Queen was dying. Wolves from distant lands came to see her, not as a goddess, but as a symbol. The girl who ended a war, the woman who made an alpha kneel. Lyra greeted each visitor with quiet grace, hiding her pain behind soft smiles. But every time she met a new pair of eyes, she wondered how long they'd remember her name once she was gone. That night, she stood on the castle balcony, her gown rippling like mist. The moon hung low and pale, almost mournful. Ronan joined her, his arm wrapped in a sling, his face lined with exhaustion. You were never meant to fade. She turned to him, her hand resting over his heart. Neither were you meant to break. They stood in silence as the wind whispered through the mountains. Below, torches flickered across the rebuilt village. Life, fragile and warm, blooming again after ruin. Lyra smiled faintly. If I don't wait tomorrow, promise me you'll keep building. Make it beautiful. Ronan's jaw clenched. You'll wake. I'll make sure of it. She leaned forward, pressing her lips to his. You can't fight fate, Ronan. He held her face between his hands, his voice breaking. Then I'll rewrite it. And as the moon watched from above, the queen of ashes and snow closed her eyes, her light dimming, her fire flickering low, and the world held its breath. The night was too still. Even the wind had stopped breathing. Inside the stone castle, torches burned low, their flames thin and uncertain. Lyra lay on the great bed of the northern chamber, her skin pale as frost, her breath shallow. Every heartbeat echoed faintly through the silence, like a clock counting down to something final. Ronan sat beside her, unmoving. His hand rested over hers, fingers cold against cold. Around them, healers whispered prayers that held no weight. The moonfire was nearly gone. The faint mark on her wrist flickered weakly like dying embers. Outside, the wolves howled, a mourning sound that stretched across the valley. Even the sky seemed to bend with grief. Ronan lowered his head. You saved them all. That should have been enough. Lyra's lips parted in a fragile smile. It was never about saving them. It was about saving you. His throat tightened. Then let me return the favor. She shook her head slightly. The moon doesn't trade favors. She takes what she's owed. And then, as though hearing her, the sky split open with light. A single beam of silver fire struck the tower above them, flooding the room with brilliance. The moon had come to collect her flame. The air thickened with power, so bright it burned the walls to ash where it touched. The healers fled, covering their faces, but Ronan stayed. He knelt beside the bed, clutching her hand. "Take me instead!" he shouted. The light answered with silence. Lyra opened her eyes, glowing faintly blue-white, like two pieces of the moon itself. You can't stop it. Ronan gritted his teeth. You're my mate. Our bond isn't yours alone to break." Her tears shimmered in the glow. "Then hold me until it ends." He pulled her into his arms as the light grew unbearable. Her body trembled against his, her breath slowed. The moon's voice filled the air, not words, but emotion, sorrow, gratitude, inevitability. "Child of silver, your fire returns home." Lyra exhaled softly, almost peacefully, and the mark on her wrist vanished. Her body went still. Ronan felt it before he saw it, the bond snapping like a blade through the chest. He gasped, pressing his forehead to hers, the word tearing from his throat. "No!" Outside, the snow began to fall again, but this time it was silver. The night, the stars wept. Hours passed. The moon retreated, the fire dimmed. What remained was only quiet. Ronan sat in the same place, her head on his lap, refusing to move. The healers returned, eyes wet, but no one dared approach. "She's gone," one whispered. Ronan's voice was low, broken. "She's not." He traced her face with trembling fingers. There was still warmth beneath her skin, barely, but there. He leaned down, his tears falling against her lips. "You promised me a gone." Outside, the wind rose again. The snow swirled into strange patterns, shimmering faintly like light cotton glass. Then, from the horizon, the moonlight shifted, splitting into thousands of tiny motes that rained down like stardust. They gathered around her body, sinking into her skin. Ronan froze. The mark, the same one that had faded, flared back to life. But it wasn't silver this time. It was red. The color of blood, of life, of something reborn. He held his breath. Her chest rose once, then again. Her fingers twitched, and with a gasp that shattered the silence, Lyra opened her eyes. The glow vanished as suddenly as it had come, leaving only the dim light of dawn through the frost-covered windows. Lyra blinked slowly, her lips parting. "Ronan?" He caught her face in his hands, disbelief and relief warring in his eyes. "You came back." Her voice was a whisper. "I saw her, the moon. She said the world still needed me." Ronan laughed once, low and broken. "For once, I agree with her." But she wasn't the same. Her aura was different, no longer pure silver, but streaked with deep crimson, mortal and divine fused together. The healers entered, bowing in awe. The moonfire lives within her again, but changed. Lyra sat up slowly, exhaustion heavy in her limbs. "No, not the moonfire. Something else." She looked at her hands, flexing her fingers as faint sparks of red light danced between them. "This isn't power meant to destroy. It's meant to heal." Ronan took her hand, pressing it to his chest. "Then start with me." She smiled faintly, and as the red light spread through him, his wounds sealed, the pain vanished, and for the first time in years, he felt whole. Outside, dawn finally broke, and the snow turned gold. When the sun rose fully, the entire valley awoke to the miracle. Wolves emerged from their shelters, lifting their eyes to the golden sky. Word spread faster than wind. The Moonfire Queen lives. But it wasn't just her survival that changed them. It was her transformation. No longer the goddess's vessel, Lyra had become something entirely new, a bridge between wolf and divine. Ronan stood beside her on the balcony, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. She leaned against him, weak but alive. Below, thousands of wolves knelt in the snow. "What now?" he asked quietly. She gazed at the horizon where the last fragments of night faded. Now we teach them what peace looks like. He nodded. And the moon? Lyra smiled softly, watching the sky. She's watching, but she's no longer in control. They stood there in silence as the light warmed their faces. It was no longer the fire of destruction or vengeance, but something gentler, hope. For the first time in centuries, the packs howled not for war, but for life. And as their voices rose to the heavens, the stars above flickered one last time, like tears of joy. The snow had melted into spring rain. The valley that once held ruins now shimmered with green life, flowers pushing through the soil as if the earth itself wanted to start again. But peace came with new weight and new eyes. Every pack looked to Lyra and Ronan now, not as rulers of blood, but symbols of rebirth. The alpha prince who defied the moon and the girl who returned from death. Yet beneath the beauty, tension still lingered. Some wolves whispered that Lyra's power was unnatural, that she had stolen her fire from the goddess. Others feared her crimson glow, calling it the blood of forbidden light. Lyra heard every whisper, but spoke to none. She spent her days tending to the wounded, healing those still haunted by war. The red light in her hands could mend flesh, calm fever, and silence pain. But what it couldn't heal was guilt, her own most of all. Ronan noticed the way her eyes clouded when no one watched. He would find her outside at night, sitting on the same stone where she'd once begged the moon to spare him. "Still talking to the sky?" he teased softly one night. She smiled faintly. "Still pretending you're not watching me?" He stepped closer. "Always watching, little wolf." Her laughter was soft, but her eyes shimmered. "Do you ever think we were chosen for this?" He met her gaze. "No, I think we chose it. Every time we refused to give up on each other." The next morning, a messenger arrived, breathless, trembling, eyes wide. "The southern packs," he gasped, bowing low before the throne. "They're refusing the truth. They're marching this way." Ronan stiffened. Lyra's expression darkened. Peace had lasted barely 2 months. "Why?" Ronan demanded. "They claim the goddess abandoned them. They say the queen's power is cursed." The council erupted in panic, voices clashing like thunder. Ronan slammed his fist on the table, silencing them. "No one touches this valley. If they want war, they'll find me waiting." Lyra stood slowly, the red light in her eyes flickering. "No. If we fight again, it never ends. Let me speak to them." Ronan turned sharply. "Absolutely not. They'll try to kill you." She stepped closer, her tone calm but unyielding. "Then let them see what mercy looks like." The room fell silent. Ronan stared at her, the same woman who once ran from the world, now ready to walk into it again. Finally, he exhaled. "You'll go, but I'm coming with you." She smiled faintly. "I was counting on it." And for a heartbeat, something in his chest eased, the kind of peace that came only when love was stronger than fear. They left at dawn. The forest whispered as they passed, the trees heavy with mist and memory. Every step brought them closer to the southern border, where hundreds of wolves waited, eyes glowing gold, claws unsheathed, hearts filled with rage. At their head stood Alpha Draven, scarred, cold, once a friend of Ronan's before power had rotted his heart. "So, the dead queen walks. Tell me, does the moon know her thief lives?" Lyra didn't flinch. Her voice was calm. "I didn't steal from her. I gave back what she didn't deserve." The crowd murmured. Ronan's brow rumbled low. "Watch your words, Draven." But Lyra lifted her hand, stopping him. "If you want to fight, do it now. But know this. Every drop of blood spilled from this day forward will burn on your soul." Draven's smile faded. "You think your red light scares me?" "No," she said softly. "I think it reminds you." And before anyone could speak, the air shimmered, her power spilling across the field like a sunrise. Wolves dropped to their knees as the warmth washed over them. Their pain eased, their rage faded. Even Draven faltered, his claws lowering. What is this?" he breathed. "Forgiveness. Something the moon forgot." When it was over, silence swept the valley. The southern wolves bowed, not to a goddess, but to her. For the first time in generations, there was no alpha stronger than peace. Draven fell to his knees. "What are you?" he whispered. Lyra smiled faintly. "A reminder that mercy isn't weakness." Behind her, Ronan stepped forward, his voice carrying across the plains. "This is the new law. The packs will not serve fear or prophecy. They will serve choice." The wolves looked between them, uncertain. Then one by one, they began to howl. It wasn't the cry of submission or mourning, but something pure, a beginning. Lyra turned to Ronan, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Do you hear that?" He nodded. "They're singing for you." She shook her head, smiling through the ache in her chest. "No, Ronan, they're singing for us." And as the sound rose into the sky, the last traces of the old world fell away. The war, the curse, the prophecy, all of it buried beneath that song. That night, the stars burned brighter than ever. Lyra and Ronan stood by the riverbank, the reflections rippling beside each other, one of silver, one of red. He turned to her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "So, my queen of fire and light, what happens now?" She leaned against him, her voice soft. "Now, we live. For the first time, not as weapons or legends, but as ourselves." Ronan smiled faintly. "You still think we weren't chosen?" She looked up at the glowing sky. "No. I think fate tried to break us, and we chose to love anyway." He kissed her forehead, slow and sure. "Then that's what makes us bound by fate, but freed by love." Her fingers intertwined with his, and together they watched the stars shimmer, as if the heavens themselves were listening. The wolves howled in the distance, carrying their song into eternity. For the first time since the first howl of creation, peace didn't feel like silence. It felt like home. And beneath that endless sky, the Alpha Prince and the girl who defied the moon stood hand in hand, not rulers, not gods, just two souls who finally got to live the life they'd fought for.
Peace never lasts forever. It had been 3 months since the unification of the packs, and the valley had begun to heal. Children laughing in the fields, wolves running without fear beneath the moon. But deep in the forest, something ancient stirred. Lyra felt it first. The night air grew colder, heavier, as though the shadows themselves were breathing. Her crimson mark pulsed faintly beneath her skin, warning her. She found Ronan on the watchtower, his eyes scanning the horizon. "You feel it too?" he asked. She nodded. "The moon's restless." He exhaled slowly, jaw tightening. "I thought we ended her reach." Lyra's gaze drifted toward the glowing line of mountains. "You can't end what was born with the world. You can only refuse it." And then, from the darkness beyond the trees, a sound split the stillness. Not a howl, not a growl, but something older. A voice made of night and grief. "Child of stolen flame, return what is mine, or I will take it back myself." Ronan moved instantly, pulling Lyra close. The scent of smoke filled the air, the sky flickered with silver lightning, and suddenly, every torch in the valley went out. The moon had come again, not as light this time,
but as vengeance. The storm descended without warning. Wolves screamed as the ground cracked open and light poured through the fissures. The moon's voice echoed, shaking the mountains. You defied me once, mortal child, but no mortal keeps my fire. Lyra stood at the center of it all, her gown whipping around her, her eyes blazing red. I didn't keep it, she shouted into the storm. I changed it. It's mine now. The light twisted into form, a towering figure of silver flame, the moon given shape. She looked down at Lyra with fury and sorrow intertwined. Then you will burn with it. Ronan shifted, his wolf bursting through, massive, black as midnight, his growl thunder itself. He leapt between Lyra and the goddess, claws tearing through lightning. But the moon's power was too vast. With the flick of her hand, Ronan was thrown backward, his body crashing through stone. Ronan, Lyra screamed, rushing toward him. He tried to stand, blood staining his mouth. Stay back. She turned toward the goddess, her voice breaking. You'll have to go through me. The moon tilted her head. So be it. The sky split open and silver fire rained down. Lyra raised her hands, catching the flames mid-air. Her crimson light clashed with silver, the two powers twisting, screaming, devouring each other. Every heartbeat felt like war. The ground shattered beneath her feet, and her veins glowed so bright they hurt. The moon's voice shook the heavens. You cannot rewrite fate. Lyra's voice came like a roar. Then watch me. Behind her, Ronan forced himself up, limping through the storm, his wolf's eyes burning. He reached her side, gripping her arm. We do this together. She looked at him, tears and fire mingling in her eyes. If we merge our power, it could kill us both. He smiled, broken, beautiful. Then we die as one. Their hands joined, red and silver light spiraling upward until the whole valley was swallowed in brilliance. The moon screamed as her light fractured. Her voice turned to echo, fading into the storm. If you take my power, you'll take my burden too. And then silence. The light vanished. Only the two of them remained, standing at the center of a crater, their bodies trembling, their marks glowing the same color, gold. The battle was over, but the cost was unbearable. The goddess was gone, but so was the moonlight itself, the sky empty, the stars dimmed, the night eerily dark. Ronan collapsed to his knees, gasping. Lyra caught him, holding his face between her hands. Stay with me. He looked up at her, eyes half closed. You did it. No, she whispered. We did. Her hand glowed faintly gold, trying to heal him, but the power burned through her veins faster than she could control it. She felt herself fading, her heartbeat echoing like a drum underwater. Ronan saw it, and panic flared in his eyes. No, don't you dare leave me again. She smiled weakly. It's not the same this time. I'm not dying. I'm becoming something else. Lyra. Her lips brushed his, soft and fleeting. If I fade, remember this. We broke fate. And before he could speak again, the light in her chest burst outward, golden, warm, endless, spreading through the valley like dawn breaking after an eternal night. When the light finally settled, the world had changed. The stars shone again, but softer, warmer. The moon no longer ruled the night. It shared it. Lyra's body was gone. Only golden petals of light floated where she had stood. Ronan fell to his knees, silent tears cutting down his dirt-streaked face. Around him, wolves began to gather, drawn by the glow. They didn't cry or kneel. They just watched, awestruck. A single whisper drifted through the wind. When the moon falls, the dawn shall rise in her place. And then, through the stillness, a faint echo, her voice, inside his chest. I'm not gone, Ronan. I'm in every heartbeat that dares to defy fate. He bowed his head, breathing through the ache. Then I'll live enough for both of us. The valley shimmered with new light, not silver, not red, but gold. A color that had never existed before she created it. The packs lifted their heads, and for the first time, they howled not to the moon, but to her, their lost queen, their dawn, their fire. And as Ronan's voice joined theirs, the night trembled with something eternal, the last howl.
The valley never forgot the night the sky went dark, nor the morning that followed. It took weeks before life began to return to normal, before laughter found its way back into the air. Flowers began to bloom again where the golden light had fallen, their petals faintly glowing in the dark. The people called them Lyra's tears, flowers that opened only under starlight, warm to the touch, humming with energy that felt alive. Ronan wandered the mountains often, searching for traces of her. Sometimes when the wind brushed through the trees, he swore he heard her laughter echo between the cliffs. Other times, he'd wake in the night to the faint glow of gold light weaving across his skin, her mark. He ruled the packs not as king, but as guardian, uniting them under peace, not dominance. His word became law not through fear, but trust. Yet in the quiet moments, when the moonlight brushed against the river, he still found himself whispering, "You're still watching, aren't you?" And somehow, every time he said it, the water rippled with a soft golden shimmer, as if answering, always. On the 100th day since the battle, the packs gathered beneath the night sky to honor her. Torches burned low, music floated through the air, and the elders began the moon forgiveness rite, an ancient ceremony once meant to beg for mercy. But tonight, it wasn't about fear, it was about thanks. Ronan stood before the crowd, a single golden flower in his hand. "We once feared the moon," he said, voice steady but filled with emotion. "But now we know, even darkness can love light." He lifted the flower to the sky. "Lyra showed us that we are not bound by what was written. She taught us that fate can be rewritten by courage." As he spoke, the clouds began to shift. Slowly, the moon appeared, but not in her cold silver hue. She glowed golden, as though touched by human hands, her surface warm and alive. Gasps filled the air. Wolves fell to their knees. Ronan looked up, tears in his eyes. "She forgave us." The moon shimmered softly, a whisper drifting through every heart in the valley. Not forgiven, shared. And for the first time in centuries, the moon and earth glowed as one. That night, when the celebration quieted and the world fell still again, Ronan walked to the edge of the forest, to the old abandoned cabin where everything began. The door still creaked the same way, dust still drifted in the air like golden snow. He sat on the floor beside the broken window and smiled faintly. "You really loved hiding here, didn't you?" he whispered. "Even now it smells like you, pine and wild honey." He leaned against the wall, closing his eyes. "I would have found you again, Lyra, even if you'd run to the ends of the earth." A soft breeze entered through the window, brushing his hair. When he opened his eyes, the air in front of him glowed faintly, the outline of a woman, her long hair flowing like moonlight. She smiled, the kind of smile that broke and healed you all at once. Her voice came like a memory, "And I would have let you." He blinked, and she was gone. But on the floor where she'd stood lay a golden flower, fresh, alive, and warm to the touch.
Years passed. The valley grew into a kingdom. The packs united under the House of Dawn. Children grew up learning stories of the girl who defied the moon and loved a prince made of shadow. Her legend became a song sung by mothers to their pups, a lullaby of courage, loss, and love. And every full moon, when the sky turned golden, wolves from every pack climbed the hills and howled, not in mourning, but in gratitude. Ronan grew older, his hair silver, his eyes still fierce. Some nights he'd sit on the same cabin steps, looking up at the sky and say softly, "You still keep me waiting, don't you?" And the wind would answer, playful, warm, filled with laughter only he could hear. He lived long, loved fiercely, and when his final night came, he walked alone into the forest, the moonlight guiding his way. They found no body the next morning, only golden petals scattered along the path, leading toward the sunrise. Centuries later, travelers who ventured into the silver-pined valley still spoke of strange beauty, flowers that glowed like dawn, wolves that sang under golden moons, and a cabin that no longer decayed no matter how many winters passed. Legends say that on quiet nights, if you listened closely, you could hear two voices, one deep and steady, one soft and bright, laughing together in the wind. They said the moon had forgiven the world because two hearts refused to obey her. And when the young ones asked who they were, the elders would smile and answer, Lyra, the girl who changed destiny, and Ronan, the prince who followed her into forever. When the moon rose gold over the valley, every heart lifted toward it, whispering the same ancient vow. May love always defy fate. The howls began again, echoing through the forests, across rivers, up mountains, to the very edge of the stars.
Thank you for staying till the end. Please do well to like and subscribe to the channel, and also don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comment. It means a lot to me.